Welcome to the first ever episode of the Very Backbenchers podcast. My name's Taylor and this is Alex. We are two young people navigating our way through the ever-changing political world from an outside view. We are the Very Backbenchers. We are not the backbenchers, we do not sit in Parliament, we are looking at everything from way back. We're excited to share some content with you. Today is going to be a bit of an intro episode, talk about some relevant things, not too hot topic as in terms of PMQs yesterday or what this person did this far ago. We're looking at the last 15 months of British politics. And Alex, do you want to introduce yourself, let everyone know who you are?
Yeah, hi, I'm Alex, a recovering leftist, but still trying to figure out if I'm a centre-left or just centre the attention. And I guess we'll find that out on this podcast. As T said, we're just two normal blokes trying to create some sort of voice for the youth to have as a vote, but being normal at the same time. Not that anyone isn't normal, but...
So my name's Taylor. I'm a member of the Conservative Party. And the thing Alex was touching on there, we're trying to keep that conversation going. We've seen all too recently in the States especially violence in politics. And I think the best thing is for those with opposing views, we're not so far away from each other on the political spectrum, but for those with opposing views to have that open debate and discussion. So with that, we're going to get into our first question of the day, which is, they're all phrased in quite a dramatic way, but are Labour finished? We've obviously seen the last 15 months of Labour after 14 years of Conservative government. They're currently polling at 17%, which is roughly the same as the Conservatives that were openly and clearly shunned by the nation last July. Starmer's approval rating is as low as 19%, making him one of the most unpopular prime ministers ever. So, Alex, where's it all gone wrong?
I think that's testament to Starmer's ability. To be able to turn the approval rating that low is actually quite significant and brilliant. But yeah. No, I think this has all stemmed from the start. I think the policy implementations Labour have tried to do, such as cutting winter fuel caps for pensioners, the welfare bill, which was that whole quarrel internally. I think everything they've tried to implement hasn't come to any sort of fruition, and it's just created almost an identity crisis. Would you say?
Yeah, no, I think that as well. I don't think Labour know what they are at the moment. The socialist Labour that existed under Jeremy Corbyn, obviously a very divisive figure, doesn't exist anymore. I think Starmer is more of a centrist than people give him credit for. And that's showing. His party's torn. He tries to put through policies and it seems that he can never get exactly what he wants. So, yeah, and to me it just looks like they came in without a plan. They look unprepared. It's been 4 years since the last general election and they don't look prepared at all.
Yeah, and considering they've had 4 years to create this manifesto and policy implementation scheme that could be rolled out to the masses, and none of it's actually happened. So we're intrigued to say that we'll get on to Rachel Reeves and Rachel from Accounts and what we think about her, but she hasn't helped the issue. I think both of them, as a two, are a pair of clowns, personally, but we're not trying to create...
We're recording this the day after Rachel Reeves did her speech yesterday morning at 8:10 in the morning for all of 20 minutes, in which she essentially, it looked like to me and to many others that the manifesto's off. That promise of not raising VAT, national insurance and income tax seems to be off the cards. It's very unusual for her to hold that press conference.
Definitely. And the unusuality of it is that this actually happened before. And every time it's happened, it's created instability in the UK economy, which is one of the key drivers, I think, for a lack of investment in the UK, is what we're struggling at the minute, because the UK isn't a prosperous environment to invest in, which is what we've got to make the UK. But with tax rises, such on income, which is, I think, over 50% of tax receipts, NI, VAT and income tax, which is massive.
Yeah, huge.
And the knock-on effects in the economy will rue to the day we die.
Yeah, but I suppose she'll say, obviously, a £22 billion black hole left by the Conservatives. Brexit,
which has grown.
Which seems to have grown, Brexit and all the rest. She doesn't want to blame herself and her tax rises last year. We had the family farm tax, the increase on employers' national insurance, which has seemingly led to a reduction in jobs. I mean, I'm graduating university this year and I keep reading that there is roughly 1 million people competing for 70,000 graduate jobs. It's gone down by 1/3 in 12 months. I don't think we can pin that all on Rachel Reeves, but it seems that employers are wanting to employ less people.
Definitely. And we could go back to post-2008, the productivity crisis we've had in the UK, the hybrid working scheme we've got since COVID. You could point at all these things, but fundamentally it's the Labour government that need to push a different narrative, that everyone needs to get up and go, get into offices and work.
No, I completely agree. And I don't think anyone is going to sit here and dispute, especially those who voted Labour this time round, that the state it was left in wasn't perfect. Obviously, the productivity crisis has been a thing since the financial crisis of 2008.
Let me raise this though, T. In Q2 this year, we had 0.3% growth year on year. So Q2 2024 was 1.2% growth, which was the end of the Conservative tenure.
Yeah, so I mean, my personal opinion is I think after the scandals of that developed under Boris Johnson, Partygate and all the rest, I think Rishi Sunak did a pretty good job at steadying the ship. I think he called his general election too early. I think the Tories were going to be wiped out either way, but you saw those trends, and I think even past Q2, we were trending upward, quickest growing in the G7, I think. I'm not sure. But he called that too early. But what I'm trying to say is that, yes, the Tories, were at fault for the productivity crisis as well, but Reeves needs to do something about it. I think she's just saying this is the mess, but she's now had 15 months and almost 2 budgets. So, I mean, she's got to take action, right?
They're pointing fingers. It's everyone else's fault apart from theirs, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but who actually cares, T? Do you know what I mean? It's a fundamental issue in the economy that we need to all get over, and Labour need to kickstart that at the forefront by forgetting what Conservative have done. We're a new nation, post-COVID, post-Conservative era, and that's their opportunity almost to kickstart a new economy under Labour's regime.
So you say kickstart. What do you think of her philosophy, which seems to be raise taxes? This time she says it's to cut NHS waiting lists, fuel growth and cut the deficit. Do you think that's an effective measure to get us there as a country?
No, but I guess that comes down to ideologies. I think we're both economic right-wing. We believe in let the market speak, pretty much. Yeah. And all this does is increase the role of government in an economy. Almost inevitably, if this keeps happening, it could not be able to revert it. If all these net zero jobs that are going out on the government scheme could eventually get so large that if a new government come in, they can't cut all these jobs.
Yeah, and we will come back to net zero, I'm sure, later on. But, okay, then the flip side, the Conservative Party, they're saying the way to do this is to cut funding for degrees they don't see as providing young people the skills and cutting the welfare bill. We know Rachel Reeves can't cut the welfare bill. We've already seen that tried and failed. But what do we think she could do other than high tax as a Labour Chancellor?
You have to look at spending cuts. I think as the UK economy, especially the public sector, spends an astronomical amount on unnecessary things. We can look at welfare, we can look at education and other parts of government spending. But initially, I'd like to go into welfare because we saw the 5 billion cuts they tried to make earlier on in their tenure. However, this obviously didn't happen because of an internal quarrel at Labour. Yeah. From the wider perspective, maybe from my perspective, I think it was the right move to go down the welfare route. I think, personally, there's too many claimants on the scheme that are benefiting with free money, but to their own detriment almost. I think there's a lot of people that do have the capacity to work, do have the capacity to contribute, but because they've been almost nudged into that reliance on benefits, who would want to go back into the workforce? You're getting paid, I don't know, 20 grand a year.
That's, I suppose, the old poverty trap argument. And,
it's massive.
Well, we've looked at that side, and I think if you want to introduce us into our next section regarding reform.
Yeah, so reform have obviously been in the news lately massively over the last year, so we wanted to pose the question, is reform just a populist vote or is it pragmatic in the economy?
Yeah, and I think, in terms of our reform, that protest vote away from both the Labour government and the Conservative governments have passed. I think they are. Yes, they are currently polling at high 20s and low 30s in some polls. I just don't think it's here to stay. I think that the party is made up of obviously a lot of Tory defectors and Nigel Farage. But I think when push comes to shove, we get there in 3 years' time to the next general election. I think people aren't going to be looking at them the way they are now.
Cool. And give a key reason for why you think that may be.
Maybe not a key reason, as now they are on that trajectory, but it depends greatly, I think, on one thing. Can Labour slow down illegal migration? Because that is the number one topic for all Reform voters. It doesn't matter about Nigel Farage's behaviour, whether he's in Clacton, whether he's having issues with his wife and their constituency house in Clacton, similar to Angela Rayner. The people don't care. The issue is illegal migration. The numbers have only gotten worse since Labour took office. They said they'd smash the gangs. We've had 5 general elections voted on lower immigration. Can Labour do it? And I don't think they can. I think Reform will gain that momentum, but if Labour can stop it, I think that will snuff out Reform.
So would you say it's because of Labour's lack of action, perhaps, that has allowed and kept the door open for Reform to push through?
Of course, and like I say, we'll get on to that lack of action soon, but I think that Labour not dealing with this crisis, this boat crisis, in the way they said they would, has definitely left the door open.
Yeah.
You look at any other electoral cycle, the Conservatives completely battered by that Labour almost supermajority. Labour would have maybe 2 parliaments, maybe 3 parliaments, just to do anything they want. But now they've got this sort of, third party joining in and causing them problems. So
it is almost as if the nation has been swept under its feet, almost. And by all means, I'm happy to see another party come into the frame. No matter of my affiliations and what I think of Reform, it doesn't matter. To see a breaking of the 2-party system in the UK is a prosperous thing. I think we should all look at and clap it, despite of what you believe of that.
Of course.
But I think, yes, fundamentally, strongly, I believe that if Labour, did smash the gangs and they controlled immigration into the UK, I think Reform would just lack a key initiative that they were going to pursue in government.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I don't think anyone sensible can deny that Zia Youssef and Nigel Farage are fantastic speakers in the way that, whether you disagree or agree with their points, they get them across very clearly in press conferences. Yeah. This is obviously what people say is a key pillar of populism, but they are fantastic speakers. And this is something that the Labour Party, Reeves, Rayner, obviously not anymore, and Starmer do suffer from. They are not very likeable and easy to resonate with through the TV screen.
But then I wouldn't say that Nigel Farage is either.
You don't believe so?
I don't watch Nigel Farage and go, wow, I've resonated with
him. What do you think of Zia Youssef?
Zia Youssef, I think he speaks in a calmly manner, but in terms of what he's backing and who he's representing, I see the bigger picture of the whole thing. And that shouldn't negate from the fact that I do think he's a good speaker. He maintains his temperament, which is very good, especially in these sorts of climates when you get a lot of heat in these panel discussions and audience participation. A lot of this stuff happens.
Yeah.
But I think he represents Farage, who we know historically, let's not beat around the bush, is the leader of populism. We've seen it with the EU referendum. We've seen it when he's been banging about boats since 2019.
But would you not say the boats are a problem? I mean, we last month surpassed, we don't want to get too into that today, that's not down as our topic, but we did surpass last year's total already in October, 3 months left of the year. It's only growing.
I understand it's an issue, wholly entirely. Rule 1, because of safety for our nation, you shouldn't be letting undocumented people come into the UK. However, I think the current state of the economy, the crisis we're in, is as a result of many other factors before that factor.
So you think that the only reason the boats are this much is because it's been pushed by Reform?
Yeah.
The reason it's on all of our agenda all the time, on all of our news channels, is because Reform have pushed it to be?
Yeah, pushed by Reform, but more so those above Reform. There's always people above political parties, we can't forget. We've seen the Murdoch effect in previous elections, and this is probably happening now. GB News is funded by Farage, among others, and GB News pushes a certain narrative. Whether or not you believe it, take it with a pinch of salt.
Right, and that almost leads me perfectly onto what we want to talk about next, is you say narrative pushing. There is undeniably large and growing division within the nation. I think it first started in the US. Obviously, we sometimes see the UK and the US mirror each other, but you see that with the assassination of Charlie Kirk last month, a prevalent right-wing speaker, not holding a position in government, but very big following. 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump within the last 2 years. Is this becoming a major problem, and who is to blame? Is it reforms rhetoric, or is it the lack of action we spoke about earlier by Labour?
I think it's obviously a bit of both. It depends what side you lean on. I know the left would say it's the billionaires, the right would say it's the votes. But I feel the rational people are somewhere in the middle who sees the holistic image of the UK and current issues we have and what's actually driving that. And if I were to say what is driving that, I think it's ourselves. I think we're all turning against each other, maybe because certain people are pushing a narrative down our throats and creating a division.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to disagree with you here, Alex. I think that the main reason for the... if anyone's not watching and just listening, Alex has just gotten very up and close to my face. But I think the reason for the division in the nation is not due to reforms rhetoric, who I do not align with, but I think it is due to lack of action from government. This is not just the Labour government of 15 months, of which they play a big role, but these boats were not started in July 2024. These crossings and this, I suppose, public whipping up and fear maybe has started way before that. We've had 5 general elections where the winner of the general election has vowed and had in their manifesto to lower all immigration, let alone illegal immigration. They are not delivering. So we can talk about what Reform want to say, but they are not delivering. 5 general elections.
No, I agree. And I think Labour had I wouldn't say perfectly good plan. It obviously had flaws, but with the Rwanda deal Rishi put in during the end of his tenure, that's completely scrapped. And do you reckon Labour will be reaping their woes after cancelling that Rwanda deal?
I think Rwanda, on the surface, obviously was very expensive. I mean, let's start with it's very far away, right?
Yeah.
To get people over there on these flights and the rates we see people coming into the country, perhaps it wasn't the perfect policy, but I think it is much better than Labour's 1 in, 1 out. I mean, first of all, 1 in, 1 out, and they're not catching everyone, doesn't decrease the amount of people that have come here illegally. It at best keeps it the same. Yeah. Last week, I think I read 42 people had been deported on 1 in, 1 out. Obviously, we've accepted 42 documented migrants. 42, Alex. No. What's the point? It seems like, what are we doing here?
It is, what's the point? That's the perfect question, Taylor. I think if you're implementing a plan and putting that much media behind it, we know when it came out, did his big press conference and all this. So initially, in the first couple of weeks, we have 3, 1 returned, and then 1 returned by one of the small boats across the channel, and then got deported again.
Yeah, so what's happened is a gentleman's come over on a small boat from Calais. He has been detained under the 1 in, 1 out system and deported to France. He is then, at the time they take your biometric data, he has then come back, and as soon as I'm not sure how exactly it works, but they've got his biometric data, they've spotted him and come back again. So some would argue that shows it doesn't work at all, and it is completely...
Of course, and to build their whole immigration case on this deal is slightly humorous, to be honest, and shows what Labour actually do pragmatically as a government.
Yeah,
I think it's nothing. They've been soulless, which we don't want to go off on too much of a tangent from the question. Is it Labour or Reform's new rhetoric? I think fundamentally you have to look at Labour. I think it's their lack of action has created a bit of uproar in the government, catalysed by Reform's new ideas.
And I agree with you. I think it's the lack of action by what was, the Conservatives on immigration had a bad record, and they'll admit that themselves.
Yeah.
And now Labour. But let's look at the flip side. Do you think Zia Yusuf is very good at getting these viral clips about what a politician has said or anything like this? Do you think that's dangerous? Do you think what Farage says is dangerous? I mean, I'll take your views on that.
Yeah, I think in the UK, in America, anywhere in the Western world, I think you should be allowed to say what you want, fundamentally, as long as it is not spreading mis or disinformation. I'm not saying either of them are.
Yeah.
But I think what I will champion Zia Yusuf and Nigel Farage and Reform on is that they've won social media.
Of course, yeah. And no one would deny that.
No, and it's allowed them to create this narrative with a lot of young people our age, perhaps, who don't read through the lines on some occasions and see it what it is for its face value. I think if you go on your For You page on Instagram or TikTok, you see Zia Youssef or a reform-related reel pop up. So I think they've seen the opportunity pretty much, and they've acted on it, which would you expect them to do any less? Probably not. Would that door have been open without Labour initiating that door? Probably not.
And this is what we said earlier. I mean, if Labour had smashed the gangs, as Keir Starmer said all over TV and radio during the election campaign in 2024, I don't think we'd be in this position. And that's why I think reform's fate hinges on that problem happening, being solved. I think that Farage and Zia Youssef are waiting every day for another news story of this person's been released from prison accidentally. We saw that last week. Or, a record number of people come over on boats and Labour just can't fix it. I think they're praying that happens.
Yeah, so let's get it clear. Both parties lie, but in the political system, every party lies.
Yeah, and that's what we're just working out. It seems that no one tells the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why you should watch this podcast, because every bit of data is verified by ChatGPT.
Yeah. Little Boris reference in there, right? Okay, so let's move on to our fourth segment, and this is one I think you've done your background data on, so I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, thank you. So, can we go green as an economy? Is it sensible? Is it pragmatic in the current economic crisis we may face? Now, Polanski has said it is time to tax extreme wealth. This has obviously been heavily discussed in the news a lot of the time by all age groups and demographics, particularly from young people who probably don't have wealth, and it's opposed by those who actually have wealth, which is understandable. Other policies among green, which would be completely new to all of us, their nuclear deterrent scheme, their net zero plan, and I quote, 2050 does not cut it, he said.
Yeah.
And the issues we're already seeing in the economy by hitting that 2050 net zero target is already causing issues. So if we were to redirect resources to that, do we actually have them? Severe tax rises across the board. Obviously the wealth tax, as we touched on, but they look to raise 50 to 70 billion pounds.
Through the wealth tax?
Through all tax raises,
taxes, okay.
Including a rise in capital gains to be on par with income tax.
Interesting.
Yeah.
If we break down those points, so let's talk about net zero. Reform's latest policy is it's done. They would absolutely batter net zero out the door, and they would look to prioritise drilling in the North Sea instead of paying other countries for that same energy. And I think the Conservatives would look to rework how we view net zero. I'm of the opinion that net zero is unfeasible.
For permanently? Or
well, Alex, let me put it this way. We are roughly 1% of the 1.1% of the world's population in the United Kingdom. Our carbon emissions amount to around 1% of all global emissions. If we want to point fingers and look at other people, we want to look at China. Yes, they're 12.5% of the population of the world's population, big country, so you'd expect their emissions to be there. They're north of 30%. Why are we trying to make any difference to this obviously critical problem we have in the world when you've got these countries just cracking on and doing whatever they like, pumping fumes into the air?
Yeah, I think on the face of it, that may be what it seems. But if it's that argument with anything in life, if no one's doing it, who's going to do it, right? And we're setting precedent as the UK, one of the leading nations, and we're not the top, but we're up there, that are contributing to a greener world. I think China probably are doing that. We don't have the stats, but China probably are investing massively in renewable energy sources.
How do you know that?
Because
12.5% and 30+% of the emissions. It doesn't look to me.
We know how much but you could say that's the UK. We're a service-based economy, right?
Yeah.
We don't produce goods.
Yeah.
Really. Look at China, biggest exporter of goods in the world, massive country, really cheap labour. They're pumping so much. And we understand that if they're not doing it, why should we? But it's a bit reactive behaviour. As the UK is an independent country, as we've been since we've left the EU, we should be an independent nation. Why don't we choose for ourselves?
But Alex, let's go ideal, perfect world. Zach Polanski says it's not soon enough, but 2050, our net emissions are zero.
Yeah.
What does that change in the world? China's are probably up to 40. Does that make sense?
But imagine the redirection the world will move to when everything's green. You're already looking in markets, ESG strategies, sustainable investing into green initiatives. I think if the UK is at the forefront of that, inevitably that will be the new world order.
But you must admit that we are at the height of an economic crisis in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
Why does pushing all of this matter right now? Right now, right now, there's many people that are saying they're on the edge of, with the cost of living crisis, whether it's pensioners, young people, on the edge.
Yeah.
What does chasing this, what I think, fantasy net zero target do for the people right now? Yes, in 50, 100 years, it might be of benefit, but what does that do right now?
And rarely I do agree with you on that one. No, I do agree. I think if Green were to get in now and our whole narrative switched to net zero, I think it would be almost like Polanski's fight to lead the UK as a nation contributing to net zero, which we've seen supply costs for energy go through the roof. Everyone's faced the brunt of energy increases.
Yeah, and it is for a business, energy costs 4 times as much in the UK as it does in the US. How are we meant to compete in anything?
We can't. And combine that with the red tape we have in every single industry in the UK.
We can't get anything done.
And people wonder why growth isn't happening. Well, in terms of Zach Polanski as a leader, would you say, as maybe a right-leaning individual, would you say that a leader with his sort of background pushing his narratives is a leader you'd want, but speak on behalf of the UK?
Well, I think I'm going to probably shock you on this one, is that that whole thing, this hypnotising women to enlarge their breasts, ridiculous, obviously. It's been spoken about by a lot of opposition and media, but I think Zach Polanski seems to be the reaction to Farage. He, as well, I've seen many interviews he's done. He speaks clearly, he gets it across, but I think some of these policies are absolutely crazy. To scrap our nuclear deterrent at the height of Russian aggression in Europe seems absolutely ridiculous. I personally think as well his policy on legalising almost every single drug, I think it's just absolutely crazy. And the last thing that the UK needs right now is crazy policies. We need a return to sensibility and grow the economy.
And in a utopian world, of course, no one wants nuclear deterrence. And what was your other policy again? Sorry.
What about his drugs?
Drugs. And we've seen that policy as well work in other nations like Portugal. But I'm in agreement. I think the UK isn't an economy that these sorts of policies work. And let's say everyone were to get rid of their nuclear deterrent. Sure, let's do it as well. But we can't do that. It's completely implausible. And if he got in, he probably wouldn't do it. So is it just a false claim now?
I don't know, but it seems to be a pretty big one. I mean, there's a lot of people that, are in favour of peace and prosperity in the world, which, I'd like to think everyone is, but immediate laying down of nuclear weapons, people are going to vote for him based on that. There's a lot of people that will. I mean, I completely disagree with it, but can he lose that part of his, manifesto to then try and get in power? I'm not sure.
This is the broader image of division in the UK. We've got this left, we've got this right. It almost seems like Reform will set up a bunch of policies. The left will say anything but that, more so the opposite. Of course, they have their identity. They're both strong in identity, which of course is a good thing. But at the same time, you need to go context to context. You need to be realistic and pragmatic. I think Green Party, fundamentally, the amount of tax rises that would be ensued on the public.
In a point of already financial crisis, absolutely insane.
It's implausible, and it just further stunts any sort of potential foreign investment we may get in the economy, which is what we're looking for. Capital gains tax on par with income tax, I think, honestly, slightly ludicrous.
Yeah, and I know there's this big push on a wealth tax. It's been mentioned by definitely Zach Polanski. I'm not sure about your party and Jeremy Corbyn. I haven't kept up to date with that, but I would assume that they would support that as well. My thing is, Alex, regarding the wealth tax, is that I think the premise of it, if you could get it to work, which is seemingly a very difficult thing to do due to the mobility of millionaires and billionaires, if you could get it to work, the people that are currently pushing for it, I'm not sure I would trust the money goes into a great place. And what I'll say is, they tried it in, and again, I've no idea what European country is. I want to say Spain, a wealth tax, and they thought they'd raised 25 billion. Where is that? That 25 billion could go like that. We've spoken about, we think the welfare bill's too high. What if it all went into that? I'm not sure it would do much good.
It's a good point, and I'm going to tell you a little fun fact. I'm actually worth £2 billion, and I'd like to say that...
I'm not sure about this.
No, 100% true. I am happy to pay higher tax if the government was transparent on where it's going. I see where it's going. We've seen this works successfully in more collectivist cultures in Northern Europe. Sweden pay higher taxes, and it's just the norm because people can see it visibly day to day.
Yeah.
They get communicated effectively on where it's going, what public services, each allocation of funds, which I think the UK economy government needs to take note, not only in tax rises, but being transparent and open in
Yeah,
a
and
lot
that's
of
the thing. I
subjects.
mean, trust in all politicians, Conservative, Labour, whatever you name it, is at an all-time low.
Yeah.
Do we think we need some sort of policy where we see exactly where everything's going? I think that might be the case across all. Maybe it could even be a law or an unwritten rule in Parliament that whoever the Chancellor is, whoever's in charge, you tell us you've saved 10 billion. Where does that 10 billion go? What goes to the deficit? What goes to the NHS, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think if that would prevent the opportunity for media companies to spread mis and disinformation as well.
Yeah.
If the UK put it factual, an official statement, this would remove a lot of queries.
Yeah, and I agree. So but I think we both come to the consensus that Zach Polanski, not for us, the green wave in our current climate is not where we need to be.
No, but comparatively to reform, I'd take him in a heartbeat.
Right, well, very interesting.
Anyway.
Okay, so we'd now like to move on to our first segment we've come up with. Obviously, this is our very first episode. And in keeping with our name, it's called Front Bench or Flop. In this, we will debate a policy, a politician, or something similar. And again, feel free in comments or wherever you're watching this to let us know what you'd like that to be. This time, we've chosen digital ID. A very, very, very hot topic. Labour wants to create what they say is free digital IDs for people to show their right to work, essentially putting all your legal documents on one thing. The key point is, though, Alex, I want you to get started on this, is it wasn't in the manifesto.
No, it wasn't. So it comes as a bit of a shock to the public. I think 2.9 million people have petitioned against it, which is interesting.
That's insane.
It's big. So I think on the surface, it seems that it's just a tool for proof of work. So students, pensioners, those that aren't looking to work don't actually have to attain one. It's not going to be used for public service identification as a passport, international travel, none of these things, purely just be able to work in the UK.
Well, Alex, that's what they say. You'll have to forgive me here because I'm a little bit tinfoil hat on this, is that there's no indication that this is the intention, but I'm not sure I trust any government with that power. I'm not talking about Labour, I'm talking about any government pushing any agenda. I mean, there's silly examples of people walking into Nando's recently in which the full fat Coke is limited to 1 glass per person. Yeah, and I've seen these memes of...
You wouldn't like that.
Yeah, well, I've seen these memes of people tipping up and saying, you've had your 1 glass of Coke, sir, so you can't have any more, right?
Yeah.
But what happens if, 100, 200, 300 years down the line, we have a leader that wants to go, we're pushing that green, for example, say, you've had your allocated air miles for the year. Unfortunately, you cannot board this plane, right? It could be a replacement for the passport, at least in the UK, on flights leaving. Do you think there's any possibility it's pushed as a control? Is digital ID here to control us? That's what I'm asking you.
Talking about probabilities. I mean, of course there's a chance. Of course there is. Realistically, no. I think, all parties will come out and say if they were to get into next election, they would abolish it. And then it begs the question, would they actually do it? I think on the surface, to me, I don't really care. I don't really care that the government have my ID.
Oh, mate.
I think I've got nothing to hide.
No, it's not about having anything to hide, but you just think, right, Keir Starmer's reason right now is if you have this, it will stop illegal working in the UK. To work in the UK, you already have to provide a passport or a driver's licence, potentially a proof of residence. So why do we need this? It's not like I can go to Tesco and turn up and say I want a job and they'll unvet me and go, yep, you're perfect.
Yeah.
You already need these documents, so why does it need to be digital? People have this.
In the age of digitalisation, what we've seen over the last 20 years has been unprecedented. Is a digital ID inevitable? Albeit maybe people don't want it now. Is it inevitable? Probably.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure.
I do know.
2.9 million signatures. That's absolutely insane.
Is it another opportunity for people to hop on a bandwagon and identify with certain others? Who knows? Like, I agree, it's a bit invasive, it can be intrusive, but on the surface, if they're only having your national ID number or your national
Whatever
insurance
it is,
number.
yeah.
To confirm you have a right to work, they've got your name, it's fine. It's just that issue of, with all these conspiracies that could potentially happen, it could be massive. And
well, look, we've seen that with the Chancellor. Can we trust a word? And again, successive governments, can we trust a word governments say, right? They talk about not raising these 3 taxes or coming back for more taxes after last year's budget, and here we are. This is obviously an extreme example, but what happens one day, mate? You try buy some meat from the supermarket, you've already had your 1 kilo of chicken for the week. Sorry, mate, you can't have any more. I don't know. It's a bit tinfoil hat, I know, but I am so passionately against digital ID, and I cannot believe anyone that could be for them. Especially because it wasn't in their manifesto.
Well, like you're pointing fingers, towards someone else in the room, but that's fine.
No fingers are being pointed, not whatsoever.
I just want to clear up. Look, I'm not for it. I'm not against it. I'm more so.
So that's your verdict. You're indifferent towards digital IDs.
I'm indifferent. Yeah, I feel like it's not something the UK should focus on. I think it's another distraction from wider issues.
And it's going to cost money to make. What again? More spending.
How much?
I don't know how much. And again, that's why we aren't the professionals. We are the very backbenchers. We don't know half our numbers. Yeah. Any numbers we do say, we like to think, well, I've researched mine and I'm sure you have too. Yeah. But no, I don't know that number. You're right. So your verdict on our first ever front bench or flop, what is the digital ID policy? I need to push an answer for you.
I'm going to go for, on the whole, at this current point in time, no.
No, you're going to say flop. You're going to say it's a flop policy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to agree with you because I just think it's absolutely absurd.
Give it 20 years.
Nah.
Could be on the front bench.
I don't know. Blair's wanted it as well. But anyway, I think that will bring us to the end of our first episode. It's been, a lot of things done on the fly. We've obviously got our fantastic podcast set up here if you're watching this rather than listening to it. Yeah. But I think we'd both like to say a big thank you for listening.
Thank you so much.
And if you've got any ideas of what you want us to be talking about in any future podcasts, do let us know. We want to hear from you guys.
Our email will be in the link below as well, so you can send any queries or questions you want us to discuss as well.
Yeah, perfect. And expect the next episode to come out soon, and it's going to be a reaction to today, 5th of November today. Yeah. Today's PMQs, in which David Lammy stood in for Keir Starmer. So I think it's going to be an interesting one to give it. That's going to be just a bit more opinionated, I think, that one. But yeah. This has been the very front bench. Oh, I've done it again. The very backbenchers. I did this at the start of the pod. You won't believe it. The very backbenchers' first ever podcast. And thank you for listening.
Bye.